Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and this week we are doing all of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films, and today we are doing the 1993 action, adventure, comedy, family, fantasy, sci-fi Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Here is your trivia question for today. When Kenshin first meets the Turtles, what does he call them? The answer will be at the end of this video. So our film starts in Japan in 1603 as we see a couple people on horseback chasing someone else down. That person ends up being Kenshin. Now he just so happens to be the son of Lord Norinaga and continues to be a disappointment to his father. It's also around this time that we meet Walker. He happens to be an Englishman that is introducing Lord Norinaga to firearms. Jumping ahead to modern times, we are in a familiar subway station where we run into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And of course, their master Splinter. April O'Neil comes for a visit and she has gifts for all the turtles. Different things she has found from a flea market. One of those items that she's giving to Splinter happens to be an interesting looking scepter. So apparently at the same time that April is holding the scepter, Kenshin in the past is holding it as well and reads the words that are engraved upon it, causing them to switch places. They end up being in each other's clothes, which is some sort of weird rule that they play fast and loose with in this movie. Lord Norinaga then discovers April, who has taken the place of his son, and he is quite upset and believes that she is some sort of witch. Walker ends up sparing her life as he believes that he can get something out of her. Back in the future, a familiar face from the first movie, Casey Jones, is here for a visit. After speaking with Kenshin, the turtles have now realized what they must do. So now they're going to travel back in time and switch places with some other people from feudal Japan. Casey, Splinter, and Kenshin are left to watch over these warriors and make sure that they don't screw things up too much. The turtles have unfortunately appeared in the middle of a big battle. At one point, Michelangelo gets separated, as for some reason he appears in the past backwards on a horse. Also, after that point, Michelangelo and the scepter are separated as well. As for April, she has now been imprisoned and ends up meeting a man named Wit, who is more than likely related to Casey Jones in some way, shape, or form. Michelangelo ends up running into the leader of the rebellion, Mitsu, who also happens to be Kenshin's girlfriend. Leonardo, Raphael, and Donatello eventually do meet up with Michelangelo and end up joining the rebellion. So, will the turtles be able to find the time scepter before Kenshin grows too impatient and travels back before all of them have a way home? Or will the turtles accept their fate, join the rebels, and try to defeat Lord Norinaga and his army, along with Walker and all of his men? This movie was directed by Stuart Gillard. The original creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, would write the script again for this third film. The Jim Henson Company would not come back and do the animatronics for this film. It would this time be All Effects Company. The movie takes place in New York and feudal Japan, but it was actually filmed in Astoria, Oregon, and Hong Kong, China. Paige Turco comes back to reprise her role of April O'Neil from the second film. Elias Koteas from the first movie would reprise his role of Casey Jones and play the new character Wit. Now, as for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, here were their actors. For the character of Leonardo, the physical performance was done by Mark Queso, who did so in the second movie as well, and the voice was done by Brian Tochi, who's been doing it since the first film. Michelangelo's physical performance was done by David Frazier, and the voice was done by Robbie Rist, who has also been doing it since the first film. For Donatello, the physical performance was done by Jim Raposa. The voice was actually done by Corey Feldman, who did it in the first film, but due to issues with rehab, did not show up for the second movie. Now, when he came back for this one, he actually requested more money. They stated that due to his issues with rehab, they would only pay him the same rate as he got in the first film. And finally, Raphael. The physical actor was Matt Hill, and the voice was Tim Kelleher. Now, what's interesting is Matt Hill would actually appear again as Raphael, only in voice though this time, for the live action TV series. There was also a new voice for the puppet of Splinter in this film, as it would now be played by James Murray. Here's something that I just found amusing with this film. Stuart Wilson, who plays Walker, is called the Zorro Dude by Michelangelo. What's funny is, he would actually later appear in the movie The Mask of Zorro in 1998 as Zorro's nemesis, Don Rafael Montero. Here's something interesting that's almost a little bit of a Mandela effect. The movie was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, but did you think it was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Turtles in Time? If you did, you wouldn't be wrong or right, as there was no original subtitle to the film, but there was a game that had the Turtles in Time subtitle, and so many people got it confused that eventually they did actually put that subtitle on DVDs and Blu-rays. Also, speaking of Turtles video games, there was one called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. One of the fighters you could play as was named Asuka, but the character was originally designed to be Mitsu from this film. They eventually just changed it over to an entirely new character. The big plot point of this film is the turtles traveling back to feudal Japan. It would actually be a pretty common thing to happen in most Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics and cartoons. So, when talking about time travel, we can't forget to talk about the Time Scepter. This item would show up in the comic books, and it was normally associated with a character named Renette. Renette would not show up in the film, though, and her full title was Renette the Timestress. The original plan was to have a fourth movie after this one. In fact, there was a script submitted by Craig Shapiro and John Travis that was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 The Foot Walks Again, but that script was turned down. Eastman and Laird also had an idea for a fourth film. The movie was going to be called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Next Mutation. The concept was that the ooze that was in their blood and the blood of Splinter would cause a more drastic mutation. There was also talks of adding a fifth turtle called Kirby after the artist Jack Kirby. The movie idea was dropped, but the New Mutation saga would appear in the classic cartoon series, and a live action TV series called Ninja Turtles The Next Mutation would actually be made as well. They would also drop the character of Kirby as the fifth turtle and instead bring in a female named Venus de Milo, who is considered one of the most hated characters in TMNT. It wasn't until years later that they would have a good female turtle character in the comics named Jenica. So when it comes to the film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, it is still amusing and it's still a Turtles film, but I do have to say I really did not like any of the plot for this movie, so I'm going to have to give this one a 2 out of 5. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, when Kenshin first meets the turtles, what does he call them? In the past, Kenshin saw this depiction, which shows some creatures that look exactly like the turtles that are known as being demons. More specifically, a demon called a Kappa, which does resemble a turtle. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.